Captain Kevin Park was having a very normal Tuesday morning when his ship accidentally broke the universe. The Horizon Dawn was Earth's first experimental faster-than-light vessel. It was built in a secret facility in Nevada, tested for exactly 3 weeks, and launched into space with a crew of 12 people who had signed approximately 400 pages of paperwork saying they understood they might die in horrible ways. Kevin had read maybe 20 of those pages. He had signed all of them anyway. That was the kind of man he was. The ship was not beautiful. It looked like someone had attached a giant metal donut to a cargo container and called it a day. The engine made a sound like a washing machine full of rocks. The coffee maker worked only half the time, but it could, theoretically, travel faster than light. Today, they were testing that theory. Kevin sat in his captain's chair, which was really just an office chair bolted to the floor. He held a metal thermos full of coffee that was already getting cold. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the calm focus of people who had accepted that they might explode at any moment. Elikim, the navigator, checked her screens for the 100th time. She was a small woman with glasses and a habit of talking to herself when she was nervous. Right now, she was very nervous. Tony Lee, the chief engineer, stood near the back of the bridge with his arms crossed. He had built half of this engine himself. If it failed, he wanted to see exactly how it failed. For Science, Grace Cho, the medical officer, sat at her station with a first aid kit on her lap. She was not sure what kind of first aid she could provide if the ship turned inside out, but she wanted to be ready anyway. Kevin looked at his crew. They looked back at him. "All right," he said. "Let's do this thing. Ella, start the countdown." Ella's voice was steady. "Jump drive engaging in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. The ship began to shake. The lights flickered. Someone's coffee mug fell off a console and shattered on the floor. 6, 5, 4. Tony muttered something under his breath that sounded like a prayer. Or maybe a curse. It was hard to tell. 3, 2, 1. Jump. The universe turned inside out. For exactly 2 seconds, Kevin saw colors that did not exist. He felt his body stretch in directions that bodies should not stretch. He heard a sound like every song ever written playing at the same time, then it stopped. The ship was still. The lights were still on. The engine was still humming. Everyone was still alive. Kevin blinked. That was weird. Ella stared at her screens. Her face had gone very pale. "Captain, you need to see this." Kevin walked over to her station. He looked at the navigation display. He did not understand most of what he was seeing, but he understood enough that they were no longer anywhere near Earth. They were not even in the same part of space. According to the sensors, they were approximately 47,000 light years from home. "Well," Kevin said, "that's a lot farther than we planned." "Captain," said Danny Wang, the security officer, from his station near the weapons console, "we have a bigger problem." Danny pointed at the main view screen. Kevin turned to look. Outside the ship, filling every direction, were warships. Massive warships. Ships the size of cities. Ships with weapons that glowed with strange energy. Ships that were pointing all of those weapons directly at the Horizon Dawn. Kevin counted 17 of them before he stopped counting. "Oh," he said. He took a sip of his coffee. It was definitely cold now. The communication system crackled to life. A voice filled the bridge. It was deep and harsh and sounded like metal grinding against metal. The ship's translation software worked overtime to convert it to English. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered sacred imperial space. You have violated the eternal boundary. You have interrupted a convoy of the Supreme Chancellor. For these crimes, you will be judged. Prepare to receive boarding parties. Do not resist. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. The bridge was silent. Everyone stared at the view screen. The alien warships moved closer. Tony broke the silence first. "So, we're going to die." "Maybe," Kevin said. "Definitely," Tony said. "Look at those ships. One of them could destroy our entire planet. And there are 17 of them. 17 that we can see," Ella added helpfully. Grace raised her hand like she was in school. "Should we be panicking right now?" "I feel like we should be panicking." Kevin thought about it. He really did. He considered the situation carefully. They were lost in space, surrounded by alien warships, about to be boarded by creatures they had never seen before. They had no weapons that could fight back. They had no allies. They had no plan, but Kevin Park had grown up in Detroit. He had survived 3 car accidents, 2 divorces, and the collapse of his first startup company. He had eaten gas station sushi on a dare and lived. He had watched his favorite sports team lose the championship 4 years in a row. He had worked for the government. A few aliens with big ships did not scare him. "No," he said. "We're not panicking. We're going to talk to them." "Talk to them?" Danny said. "Did you hear what they said? They want to judge us." "Then we'll explain ourselves," Kevin said. "We're humans. We're good at explaining ourselves, usually with too many words." The communication system crackled again. This time, a visual appeared on the screen. It showed the inside of an alien ship. And standing in the center of that ship was the largest insect Kevin had ever seen. It was at least 8 feet tall. It had 4 arms, 2 legs, and a head covered in mandibles the size of car doors. Its eyes were black and glossy. Its body was covered in armor that looked like it was grown, not built. When it spoke, its mandibles clicked together in a pattern that the translator turned into words. "I am War Commander Thresh of the Imperial Vanguard. You are the first of your kind we have encountered. Your vessel does not match any known design. Your biology does not match any known species. Explain yourselves before we decide how you will die." Kevin stepped forward. He straightened his jacket. He took another sip of his cold coffee. "Hi there," he said. "I'm Kevin Park. I'm the captain of this ship. We're from a planet called Earth. We just invented this engine about 3 weeks ago. We were testing it. Honestly, we had no idea it would bring us this far. We definitely didn't mean to interrupt your convoy or violate any boundaries. So if you could maybe point us toward the exit, that would be great." The war commander stared at him. Its mandibles clicked in a pattern the translator read as deep confusion. "You are not afraid?" Kevin shrugged. I'm a little concerned. But afraid? Not really. Should I be?" The war commander turned to someone off-screen. They exchanged words in their own language. Then the war commander turned back. "Your species is either very brave or very stupid." Kevin smiled. "Honestly? Probably both." The Horizon Dawn was not destroyed. This surprised everyone, including the humans. Instead, the massive warships formed a circle around the small Earth vessel and escorted it through space. The journey took 6 hours. During that time, the crew of the Horizon Dawn did what humans always do when they are waiting. They complained about being hungry, argued about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom, and played card games. War Commander Thresh watched them through security cameras. He did not understand what he was seeing. Ella Kim won 3 games of poker before Tony Lee accused her of cheating. She denied it. Everyone knew she was lying. Nobody cared because the snacks were running low and they had bigger problems. The convoy finally arrived at its destination. The crew gathered at the view screen and fell silent. Before them was a ring world. It was a massive structure that circled an entire star. It was so big that planets could fit inside it. Its surface glittered with cities and lights and movement. Millions of ships flew around it like bees around a hive. "That's big," Danny said. "Very big," Grace agreed. Kevin nodded slowly. "I'm going to need more coffee." The Horizon Dawn was guided to a docking port on the ring world. The port was designed for ships much larger than theirs. It was like parking a bicycle in a garage meant for trucks. When the airlock opened, a group of soldiers was waiting. They were different species. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no faces at all. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Kevin stepped out first. He raised his hand in a wave. "Hey there. Thanks for the ride. Nice place you have here." The soldiers looked at each other. They had been trained for many things. Friendly greetings were not one of them. An official stepped forward. This one was smaller than the soldiers. It had gray skin, large black eyes, and very thin arms. It wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid metal. "I am Protocol Master Ven," it said. "I have been assigned to process your arrival. You will be taken to temporary holding while the Senate decides your fate." "Holding?" Tony said. "Like a jail?" "Like a waiting room," Ven said. "With guards and locks and no way out." "So a jail," Tony said. "A waiting room," Ven repeated firmly. They were led through the station. The halls were enormous. The ceilings were so high that clouds formed near the top. Thousands of aliens walked past them. Some stopped to stare. Others hurried away. The humans stared back. They pointed at things. They asked questions that the guards refused to answer. Danny took pictures with his tablet until a guard tried to take it from him. Danny held onto it tightly and said, "No, this is mine." The guard, confused by this resistance, eventually gave up. The waiting room was actually quite nice. It had comfortable chairs, clean walls, and a window that looked out at the stars. There was even a machine that produced food. Although none of the buttons were labeled in English, Ella pressed a button at random. A small cube of green paste appeared. She sniffed it. She shrugged. She ate it. "Tastes like chicken," she reported. "Everything tastes like chicken," Tony said. "No, this really does." For 3 days, they waited. Meals came from the machine. Information did not come at all. Guards stood outside the door. They changed shifts every 8 hours. The humans learned their schedules and started saying good morning to them. On the 4th day, Protocol Master Ven returned. It looked tired. Its liquid metal robes had stopped flowing smoothly. "The Senate has made a decision," Ven said. "You will not be executed." "Oh, good," Kevin said. "That's nice. Instead, you will be presented to the full Senate Assembly. You will speak for your species. You will explain your presence in Imperial space. You will answer questions. Based on your answers, the Senate will decide if your species is worthy of contact or worthy of extinction." The room was quiet for a moment. Grace raised her hand. "Quick question. Who exactly is going to speak for our species?" Ven pointed at Kevin. "Your captain will speak." Kevin shook his head. "I'm not really a speech guy. I usually just wing it." "Then you will wing it before 4,000 species who control this galaxy." Kevin considered this. "All right, but I'm going to need pants that don't have coffee stains on them." The Senate chamber was the largest room any of them had ever seen. It was built in a circle, with thousands of platforms rising toward a ceiling that disappeared into darkness. Each platform held representatives from a different species. Some were small. Some were large. Some were beings of pure energy. Some were clouds of gas held in special containers. Some had bodies that did not follow the rules of normal matter. In the center of the room, at the very bottom, was a single platform. It floated above a floor that was not really there. Kevin stood on that platform. His crew stood behind him. Ella had fixed his collar. Tony had cleaned his shoes. Grace had given him a small pill for his headache. Danny had said, "Don't mess this up." A voice echoed through the chamber. It came from everywhere at once. "The Supreme Chancellor will now address the newcomers." From the highest platform, a being descended. It was made of pure light. Crystal light that shifted and changed with every movement. When it spoke, its voice was like music and thunder combined. "I am Vorth. I have served as Supreme Chancellor for 9,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed the birth and death of stars. I have judged 10,000 species who have entered this galaxy. Most are forgotten now. Some were destroyed. A few were allowed to survive." Vorth floated closer to Kevin. The light grew brighter. "You have appeared from nowhere. Your technology is unknown. Your species is unknown. You have no history in our records. You have no allies. You have no power. You have nothing." Kevin waited. "And yet," Vorth continued, "you do not seem concerned. You do not beg. You do not threaten. You do not even seem impressed. Why is this?" Kevin thought for a moment. Around him, 4,000 species waited for his answer. "Honestly," Kevin said, "we've had a rough couple of centuries. Wars, diseases, climate change, bad TV shows. We learned to stop getting too stressed about things we can't control." Vorth pulsed with something the translator struggled to identify. It finally settled on the word disbelief. "You face the mightiest powers in the known universe. Empires that have burned entire galaxies bow before this council. And you tell me you are not stressed because of bad television programs?" Kevin shrugged. "I mean, you try watching the same show for 8 seasons, and then they cancel it on a cliffhanger. That'll prepare you for anything." Behind him, Tony nodded. "He's not wrong." Vorth was silent for a long moment. The entire chamber was silent. Finally, the Chancellor spoke again. "You are either the bravest species we have ever encountered, or the strangest." "Perhaps both. We get that a lot," Kevin said. "The Senate will take time to decide your fate. You will remain here as our guests. You will be watched. You will be studied. And you will, eventually, be judged." Kevin nodded. "Sounds fair. Just one question. Speak. Do you guys have anywhere we can get breakfast? I've been craving pancakes for like a week." The chamber erupted into what the translator could only describe as confused murmuring. No species had ever asked about breakfast before. Vorth flickered in a pattern that might have been amusement or horror. It was hard to tell. "Find them food," the Chancellor commanded, "and watch them carefully. I believe they are going to be trouble." Kevin smiled. "Thank you for your hospitality." He meant it. That was the strange part. He actually meant it. The Senate was worried. Not scared, because the Senate had not been scared of anything in thousands of years. But they were worried. And that was almost the same thing. A species that did not fear them was dangerous. A species that did not even pretend to fear them was terrifying. Throughout galactic history, every new species had reacted the same way when meeting the Senate for the first time. They begged. They threatened. They tried to impress. They tried to hide. They did something. The humans did nothing. They just existed. Loudly. Without shame. Without worry. The Senate decided to investigate. They chose their finest xenopsychologist for the job. Specialist Ornu was a fluid-form being. Its body was made of a liquid that could change shape and color depending on its mood. When Ornu was calm, it was clear like water. When it was confused, it turned purple. Right now, it was very purple. Ornu had studied over 300 species during its career. It had written papers that changed how the galaxy understood alien minds. It advised emperors and generals and diplomats. Now it was watching a human argue about sandwiches. Tony, Lee, and Jake Song had been debating for nearly 2 hours. The question was simple. Was a hot dog a sandwich? Jake said yes. Tony said no. Neither would give up. Ornu took notes. Its purple color deepened. The humans had been given comfortable quarters in a section of the ring world designed for carbon-based life forms. They had beds, a common room, and access to a food machine that had been programmed with earth dishes. The food was not perfect, but it was close enough. Grace Cho spent her time learning about alien medicine. She had discovered that the station had a medical bay that served thousands of species. She visited it every day, asking questions, watching procedures, taking notes. The doctors there did not know what to do with her. No new species had ever been interested in helping others before securing their own survival first. One day, an alien was brought into the medical bay. It was a small creature with blue skin and 6 legs. According to the doctors, it was a member of a species called the Vel. The Vel were considered lesser beings by most of the galaxy. Their planet had been conquered long ago. They served as workers, and servants thought this Vel had been injured. A machine had malfunctioned and cut open its side. The doctors looked at it and shook their heads. They did not treat Vel. It was not worth the resources. Grace walked over to the injured creature. It looked up at her with fear in its eyes. "Hold still," she said softly. "I'm going to help you." The doctors watched in shock as Grace cleaned the wound, stitched it closed, and applied medication from her own medical kit. The procedure took an hour. When it was done, the Vel was stable. "Why did you do that?" one of the doctors asked. Grace looked at him. She did not understand the question. "Because it was hurt, but it is Vel." "So?" The doctor had no answer. News of what Grace had done spread through the station. Some species thought she was foolish. Some thought she was weak. But a very few, thought she might be something else entirely. Ornu observed this. It wrote more notes. Its color turned from purple to a shade that had no name. Captain Kevin Park was also being studied, though he did not seem to notice or care. He spent his days walking around the station, talking to anyone who would listen, and asking questions about everything. One day, he met a warrior named Grak. Grak was from a species called the Thornuk. They were large, muscular, covered in natural armor, and raised from birth to fight. They valued strength above all things. Grak was one of their finest warriors. He had killed over 100 enemies in combat. He had scars on every part of his body. Grak challenged Kevin to a death duel. This was normal for the Thornuk. Meeting someone new meant testing them. The weak died. The strong survived. It was simple. Kevin looked at Grak. Grak was twice his size. Grak had claws that could cut through metal. Grak had teeth like knives. Kevin scratched his head. "A death duel, huh?" "Yes," Grak growled. "To the death." "For honor." Right, honor. That's important." Kevin thought for a moment. "How about we do something else instead?" Grak did not understand. "Something else?" "Yeah, like instead of fighting to the death, we could play cards. I have a deck in my pocket. I could teach you some games." Grak stared at him. No one had ever responded to his challenge this way. He did not know what to do. His training had not prepared him for card games. "You refuse to fight?" Grak asked. "I'm not refusing," Kevin said. "I'm just suggesting an alternative. Look, I'm sure you're a great fighter. You could definitely kill me. No question. But then what? You'd be bored again. At least with cards, we could have some fun first." Grak considered this. It was strange logic. But it was not wrong. They played cards for 6 hours. Kevin taught Grak how to play poker. Grak was terrible at it. He kept trying to intimidate the cards. But slowly, he started to understand Dot as they played. They talked. Kevin asked about Grak's life, where he came from, what he had seen, what he wanted. Grak had never been asked these questions before. In his culture, warriors did not share feelings. They fought. They won. They died. That was everything. But something about Kevin made Grak want to talk. Maybe it was the way Kevin listened. Maybe it was the way Kevin did not judge. Maybe it was just that Kevin seemed genuinely interested. By the end of the night, Grak was telling Kevin about his childhood, about his father who had died in battle, about his mother who had never recovered, about his fear that he would die the same way, alone and forgotten. Kevin put a hand on Grak's arm. It was tiny compared to the warrior's massive limb. "It's okay, buddy," Kevin said. "Let it out." Grak, the mighty warrior, the killer of hundreds, started to cry. He had never cried before. It felt strange. It felt good. Ornu watched from across the room. Its body had turned a color that the translator identified as complete psychological breakdown. 3 weeks later, Ornu submitted its report to the Senate. The document was long and detailed, but the conclusion was simple. The humans were not pretending. They were not hiding their fear. They did not have fear to hide. Their species had survived so many terrible things that they had become immune to terror. They had faced extinction multiple times and laughed about it. They had created systems designed to make their own lives difficult, and then complained about those systems, and then kept using them anyway. They had survived something called rush hour traffic. They had endured something called social media. They had experienced something called the DMV, which Ornu could not fully understand, but seemed to be a place designed to test the limits of sanity. Nothing the galaxy presented would frighten them. They had already frightened themselves worse. Ornu ended the report with a recommendation. Do not try to scare the humans. Do not try to intimidate them. Do not try to break them. Instead, watch them, learn from them, and, if possible, try to understand, because a species that could face the end of everything with a shrug and a request for breakfast might be exactly what this tired old galaxy needed. The Senate read the report. They did not know what to think, but they knew one thing for certain. The humans were not going anywhere. Whether that was good or bad, only time would tell. The Galactic Dominion had been waiting for a moment like this. For 10,000 years, the Dominion had been at war with the Senate. Not always open war. Sometimes it was cold and quiet. But always war. The Dominion believed in power. The Senate believed in order. They could never agree. Now, there was a new species. The humans, weak, small, alone, the perfect target. The Dominion High Command gathered in their war room. It was a dark place, built from the bones of conquered worlds. The leaders sat around a table made of black metal. They were massive creatures with red eyes and teeth like daggers. "The humans have made the Senate uncertain," said the Warlord Supreme. "This is good for us. If we destroy them, we show the galaxy that newcomers are nothing. If we conquer them, we gain slaves and resources. Either way, we win." The other commanders agreed. They always agreed with the Warlord Supreme. Disagreeing was not healthy. "Send the fleet to their home system," the Warlord Supreme ordered. "Find this planet called Earth. Burn it to ash. Leave nothing behind." A fleet of 300 warships departed the Dominion home world. They traveled through space for 2 weeks. They arrived at the edge of the Sol system, where Earth's sun glowed yellow and warm. The fleet scanned the system. They found 8 planets. One of them was covered in blue and green. It was small. It was fragile. It was full of life. The commander of the fleet, a cruel warrior named Varsh, smiled. This would be easy. Back on the ring world, the Senate received the news. They sent an emergency message to the human crew of the Horizon Dawn. Your home system is under attack. The Dominion has sent a war fleet. You must evacuate your people. You must prepare to flee. There is no hope of victory. The Dominion destroys worlds. This is what they do. Kevin read the message. He showed it to his crew. They gathered in their common room and looked at each other. So, Tony said, "Our planet is about to be invaded by giant alien monsters." "Looks like it," Kevin said. "And we're stuck here, thousands of light years away." "Yep," Tony nodded slowly. "Anyone else want coffee?" "I feel like I need coffee." They had coffee. They talked. They worried, but not too much. Worrying never helped. On Earth, the news arrived a few days later. Satellite systems picked up the approaching fleet. Astronomers confirmed the readings. The government made announcements. People panicked, then they stopped panicking. Because panicking was exhausting, and they had things to do. General Cindy Beak was put in charge of Earth's defense. She was 63 years old, retired from the military for 5 years, and had been enjoying a quiet life growing tomatoes in her backyard. Now she was sitting in a command center, looking at screens that showed 300 alien warships heading toward her planet. She sighed. "All right, what do we have?" The answer was not much. Earth had no space navy, no energy shields, no planetary weapons. What they had was creativity, stubbornness, and a complete refusal to go down without a fight. The first thing General Beak ordered was a broadcast. Every radio station, every satellite, every communication system in the solar system began transmitting a single audio file toward the Dominion fleet. It was a children's song. A song about a shark. It repeated for 10 hours without stopping. Commander Varish received the broadcast on his flagship. His audio systems were sensitive. All Dominion audio systems were sensitive. It was how they communicated across vast distances. The shark song played through every speaker on every ship. At first, Varish was confused. Then he was annoyed. Then, after 6 hours, he was in genuine pain. The song would not stop. His crew could not sleep. They could not think. They could not focus on their instruments. "Cut the transmission," Varish ordered. "We cannot," his communications officer reported. "It is coming from everywhere. They are using every frequency." The fleet slowed its advance. Not out of fear, but because half the crew was having trouble walking straight. Meanwhile, on Mars, the human colony was preparing for ground invasion. The colony was small, only about 5,000 people. They lived in domed habitats, grew their own food, and had chosen to live on a frozen desert planet millions of miles from Earth. They were not normal people. Normal people did not move to Mars. The Mars colonists were the stubborn ones, the crazy ones, the ones who looked at a dead red planet and said, "Yeah, I could make this work." When the Dominion sent landing ships to Mars, expecting to capture the colony easily, they were met with something unexpected. The colonists were having taco night. Yes, the invasion had interrupted taco night, and the colonists were not happy about it. The first wave of Dominion soldiers landed near the main habitat. They marched toward the dome, weapons ready, expecting terrified civilians to surrender. Instead, a door opened and a woman walked out. Her name was Wendy Park. She was 45 years old, a mining engineer, and she was holding a homemade explosive device. "You picked a bad night," she said. Then she threw the device. The explosion was not large by military standards, but it was enough to knock down the first row of soldiers and set a landing ship on fire. While the Dominion forces were recovering, more colonists emerged. They carried tools, mining equipment, and more homemade explosives. They had been making those explosives for years. Mars was dangerous. Rocks fell. Equipment failed. Sometimes you needed to blow things up. It was just part of life. The Dominion soldiers were trained for war. They were not trained for civilians who fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to prove. The battle for Mars lasted 3 days. The Dominion lost 400 soldiers. The colonists lost 12 people. When it was over, the remaining Dominion forces retreated to their ships. Commander Voresh received the news. He did not believe it at first. Then he received video footage. He watched colonists chase Dominion soldiers with pickaxes. He watched a group of humans blow up a tank with something they called a potato cannon. He did not know what a potato was. He did not want to know. Meanwhile, Earth was still broadcasting the shark song. And something else happened. A teenager named Lucas Shin had been bored. Lucas lived in San Francisco. He was 17 years old, very good with computers, and very bad at following rules. When the invasion started, his parents told him to hide in the basement. Lucas went to the basement. He also brought his computer. For fun, he tried to hack into the Dominion communication systems. He did not expect it to work. But the Dominion had never dealt with human hackers before. Their security was designed to stop other alien species. Not a bored teenager with too much time and not enough supervision. Lucas broke through in 6 hours. He appeared on the main screen of Commander Voresh's flagship. He waved. "Hey," Lucas said. "Is this the invasion fleet?" "Cool. Just wanted to say, you guys seem kind of bored. Lots of flying around, looking at things. Must get boring. You should join my online gaming guild. We play every Tuesday." Voresh stared at the screen. "How did you access this channel?" "Oh, your security is really bad. Like, really bad. You should probably fix that." Lucas scratched his nose. "Anyway, I'm not actually supposed to be talking to you. My mom would freak out. So just think about the guild thing, okay? We could use more members. Later." The screen went dark. Voresh sat in silence. His officers sat in silence. The shark song was still playing in the background. "Commander," one of his officers said carefully, "what should we do?" Voresh thought about his life choices. He thought about the honor of the Dominion. He thought about the song that had been playing for 18 hours straight. He thought about a teenager inviting him to join a gaming guild. "We leave," Voresh said. "Sir, this species is not worth conquering. They are insane. All of them. We leave now." The fleet turned around. They went home. The Dominion High Command received Voresh's report. It was short. It said, "Earth is defended by madness. Recommend avoiding this system forever." The Warlord Supreme was furious. He ordered Voresh executed for cowardice. But deep down, in a place he would never admit existed, the Warlord Supreme was also just a little bit impressed. 1 year had passed as humanity first stumbled into the galaxy. News of what happened at Earth spread through the stars like fire. Everyone heard the story. A new species, barely capable of space travel, had driven back a Dominion war fleet. They had done it with strange music, homemade explosives, and a teenager who hacked into military systems because he was bored. The story changed as it traveled. In some versions, the humans had a secret weapon. In others, they were protected by mysterious technology. But the truth was simpler and stranger. They had survived because they refused to believe they could not. The Senate debated for months about what to do with humanity. Some wanted to ignore them. Some wanted to study them. Some wanted to destroy them before they became a problem. In the end, they chose the one option no one expected. They gave humanity a seat on the Galactic Senate. It was not because humans were powerful. They were not. It was not because humans were ancient or wise. They had barely figured out space travel. It was not even because humans had proven themselves in battle. It was because the Senate had no idea what else to do with them. The announcement was made on a day when all 4,000 species were gathered in the Great Chamber. Supreme Chancellor Lorth floated to the center of the room, crystal light pulsing with every word. The species known as humanity has been examined, tested, and observed. They do not fit our categories. They do not follow our expectations. They are not powerful in any way we measure power. Yet they remain. They adapt. They endure. The chamber was silent. Thousands of eyes, in every shape and form, watched. Therefore, Lorth continued, by the authority of this council, humanity is granted a permanent seat among us. They will have a voice. They will have a vote. They will be part of our galaxy, whether we understand them or not. Across the room, sitting in the observation gallery, Kevin Park watched the announcement with his crew. They had been guests on the Ring World for an entire year. They had learned. They had grown. They had eaten strange food and made strange friends. Now, they were about to become something more. Ella Kim nudged Kevin. Did you know this was going to happen? Kevin shook his head. No idea, but I'll take it. The ceremony was formal. There were speeches. There were rituals. There were traditions that dated back thousands of years. The humans did their best to follow along. Sometimes they got things wrong. Nobody minded too much when it was time for humanity's new ambassador to take her seat. Vivian Yoon walked across the chamber floor. She wore cargo pants and a jacket with Earth United stitched on the back. She had refused to wear the official robes. They were not her style. Her seat was between two other species. On one side was the collective mind of the Cal, a hive species that spoke with 1,000 voices at once. On the other side was a being of living plasma named Zenrik, who communicated through patterns of heat and light. Vivian sat down. She pulled out a bag of chips from her pocket. She opened them. The Cal spoke, their 1,000 voices merging into one. What are those? Chips, Vivian said. Potato chips. Want some? She offered the bag. The Cal had no mouth. They could not eat chips, but they appreciated the gesture. It was, they decided, very human. Zenrik pulsed with a question. The translator converted it to words. You truly have no fear of being among us? Vivian thought about it. Fear? No. Nervous? A little. But mostly I'm just curious. This is all pretty new to us. We're still figuring it out. As are we, Zenrik admitted. You are unlike anything we have encountered. I'll take that as a compliment. Across the chamber, the crew of the Horizon Dawn scattered to find their places. They were no longer prisoners or guests. They were representatives, ambassadors, friends of the galaxy. Grace Cho found her way to the medical section. Over the past year, she had become famous among certain species. The Vel especially loved her. She had trained dozens of their young to become doctors and nurses. She had built clinics on forgotten stations. She had proven that healing was not just for the powerful. Today, a young Vel approached her. It was the same one she had saved that first week. Its wound had healed, but it would never forget what she had done. Dr. Grace, it said in its soft voice. We heard about the announcement. You are part of the Senate now. Grace smiled. I guess we are. Does this mean you will leave? Return to your own world? Eventually, maybe. But not yet. There's still a lot of work to do here. The Vel made a sound that the translator called gratitude. We are glad. You are different from the others. You see us. Grace put a hand on the Vel's shoulder. Everyone deserves to be seen. In another part of the chamber, Danny Huang had finally succeeded in his year-long campaign. The station's food synthesizers now included pizza, real pizza, with cheese and tomato sauce and crust that was almost right. He stood next to the synthesizer, watching a line of aliens try pizza for the first time. Some loved it. Some were confused. One species, which ate only crystals, had no idea what to do with it. Danny considered this a victory. Tony Lee had found his own place as well. He spent most of his time in the engineering sections, learning how alien technology worked. He had already improved 3 systems and broken 2 others. The station's engineers were not sure if they should be grateful or worried. "Your species," one of them said to him, "you do not wait for permission. You just do things." Tony shrugged. "If we waited for permission, we'd never get anything done." The engineer considered this. Perhaps there is wisdom in that. Perhaps there is madness. Usually both, Tony agreed. Jake Song, the pilot, had become something of a celebrity. Other species wanted to hear about human flight. They wanted to know how a species that had only recently discovered fire had learned to travel among the stars. Jake told them stories. He told them about the Wright brothers and their first flight that lasted 12 seconds. He told them about the moon landing and the astronauts who went there, knowing they might not come back. He told them about the dreamers who looked at the sky and said, "I want to go there." The aliens listened. They had flight too, of course. They had been flying for millions of years. But they had forgotten what it felt like to be new, to look up and feel wonder. Jake reminded them. In the center of the chamber, Captain Kevin Park stood alone for a moment. He looked around at the thousands of species gathered here. He thought about how far they had come, how strange the journey had been. A familiar presence floated toward him. Supreme Chancellor Vorth stopped nearby, crystal light flickering softly. "Captain Park," Vorth said, "I have watched your species for 1 year now. I still do not understand you." Kevin smiled. "That's okay. We don't understand ourselves most of the time. You do not seek conquest. You do not demand power. You simply exist, loudly, persistently, without shame or apology." "Yeah," Kevin said. "That's kind of our thing." Vorth was quiet for a moment. When the Chancellor spoke again, there was something different in the crystal voice. Something that might have been respect. "This galaxy is old, Captain. It has seen empires rise and fall. It has seen species burn themselves to nothing in pursuit of glory. It has seen wars that lasted longer than some stars. We are tired. We have forgotten why we started all of this in the first place." Kevin listened. "Your species is young. You are messy. You are strange. You do things that make no sense. But you also do things that remind us of what we have lost. You help those who cannot help themselves. You laugh in the face of destruction. You make friends with your enemies. You bring food to share with strangers." Vorth flickered in a pattern that the translator finally identified as hope. "Perhaps," the Chancellor said, "the galaxy needed something like you. Perhaps we needed to. Be reminded that existence does not have to be about fear and power. Perhaps it can be about something else." Kevin raised his coffee thermos. It was cold again. It was always cold. "I don't know about all that," he said. "I'm just a guy who wanted to see what was out there. Found some stuff. Made some friends. Tried not to die. Pretty basic, really." Vorth made a sound that might have been laughter. "It was hard to tell with beings made of light. You are humble. Another strange quality. Most species brag about their achievements." "We do that too," Kevin admitted. "Just usually about sports and stuff." The ceremony ended. The speeches stopped. The chamber slowly emptied as thousands of species returned to their worlds and ships and lives. But something had changed. Something small but important. There was a new voice in the galaxy now. A new perspective. A species that refused to be afraid, not because they were brave, but because they had seen enough scary things to know that fear was a waste of time. Ambassador Vivian Yoon finished her chips. She stood up and stretched. "So," she said to no one in particular, "first day on the job. What did I miss?" The Cal responded with their 1,000 voices. 3 centuries of procedural debate regarding trade routes. Cool. Want to speed that up? I'm pretty good at cutting through red tape. Somewhere in a corner of the galaxy that had never known anything like this, a new chapter was beginning. The humans were here. They were strange. They were loud. They were completely and utterly themselves. And the galaxy, ancient and tired and confused, started to wonder if maybe that was exactly what it needed. Kevin Park finished his cold coffee. He looked out the window at the endless stars. Not bad, he said to himself. Not bad at all.